Howdy and welcome guys to episode 28 of the 240sx 2JZ swap. In today's episode, we're going to be installing a big brake kit on the 240 here. More specifically, it's the CTS-V brake kit that'll go right on the front. Oh, no!
Right in the middle of my...
Right in the middle. All right guys, so the very first step for the CTS-V brake swap is that we're actually going to have to tap the front spindle in one of the holes right up here. It's actually this hole specifically. So I got a conversion kit off of ctsvbrakeconversion.com, I believe it is, and they come with these really fancy brackets like so, and they require that you tap one of these holes. So we're gonna go ahead and get to tapping this one right here. All right, so the kit provides you with an M14 tap, and I do not have a tap tool with the handles that are on each side, so I'm going to use two wrenches positioned on here to help me with that instead. So what we're going to be tapping is the bottommost hole on the front spindle here, and we're going to be going at it from the very back of the spindle, right back here. So I have my WD-40 to make sure we stay lubricated, and very importantly is that you go in straight here. You do not want to go in at an angle or things will not line up. So let's get started on this here. So the next step on our to-do list is that we actually need to modify these calipers to fit with the CTS-V brake swap brackets here. So there is some gussets and some ribbing on the back of the caliper here, and we are going to need to grind one of these ribs down so that it can clear the bracket. So what I'm going to do is bolt the bracket loosely up to the caliper so we know where we need to make clearance. We'll mark it out, and then we are going to grind that away. So let's get going. And we can see that right here on this rib, this is what is going to make contact with the bracket and the knuckle over there. So this is where I'm gonna mark and take out material. All right, so we got the caliper on. It finally clears its bracket and the knuckle there. So let me get it off and show you exactly what we had to do to get it to fit. All right, we have both calipers off here, and you can see, so this is the one side we had to grind away. You even have to kind of grind away this flat face on the caliper, not just the ribbing, because the knuckle kind of sits on that flat face. So you kind of have to indent it a little bit. If you can kind of see, it looks a little dished down here. Same on this other one. I did this one a little better where I took off less material, but let's get the glare off of there. There you go. So you can kind of see how much you need to take off there. So that's about the grinding that you will need to do. So that's all finished up. At this point, I'm gonna pop the rotors on, and heck, we'll get these calipers mounted up for the final time. We'll torque it all down, and then we can pop in the pads and the retainer clips, and we can install the brake lines, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. So heck yeah, let's get to it, guys. Okay, so before we install the calipers, the first thing we have to do is throw the rotors on, and what I have right here is some Nissan 12.75-inch full face rotors, so they're not slotted, they're not drilled. But what we have to do before we throw these on the car is to clean all of the oils off of them that came from the factory. So we're just gonna use some brake clean to get that off, and then we're gonna go throw it on the hubs, hold it in with some lug nuts, and then we can install the calipers. So let's get started. So we've got our rotors on and they're looking great, and it is time to install our caliper bracket. So we have our bracket, it's gonna sit just like this on the knuckle here, and then we have our M14 supplied bolt that just goes through the center hole like this and gets screwed into the tapped hole that we did earlier. So let me get you guys a better angle, and we will get this bracket and then the caliper on. All right, so now that that is sitting loosely in there, we're going to take our two M12 caliper bolts and we are going to, I'm just going to put them into their respective holes here. An extremely important thing to remember is that there is an extra supplied washer that comes with the kit, and that is going to go up here in this top bolt and sit between the caliper and the knuckle. It's there to align everything so that everything sits in line with each other. And without further ado, we're going to take our caliper at this point and we can finally simply thread, if I can get a good angle here, we should be able to just start threading our caliper into these bolts here. All right, now that the calipers are torqued down, it's time to install our brake pads and our retaining clips. So these are just OEM replacement brake pads. I'll have the part number for everything down in the description. And these, of course, are just OEM retainer and clips. So basically, the first thing we're gonna do before we install these in the caliper is just grease up the back of the brake pad here with the supplied grease that came with the pads, and we're also going to grease up the retaining clip and pins. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll install them on the car. All right, so now we can just pop the brake pads in here. It's super simple on these calipers, just to slide them in just like so. And you'll notice that in the caliper here at the top, there are two holes. That's where the pins go through. So just kind of line them up with the holes here on the caliper. Come on, baby. Here we go. So here we have our brake retaining clip, and you'll notice there's a rivet in the center here, and the rounded part right here, you can kind of see on one side it's round, the other side it is not. The rounded part sits to the outside because the pins will run across the top of the clip here where I've greased on either end. So it'll kind of sit in there just like so. All right, so we'll take our one pin here, through like that. Other pin here. Bend this back like so, and there you go. Now all we have to do is take a hammer and hammer in the pins, and this should be good to go. Yes. So the pads and the retainers are in, but there's still two things left to do. First, we have to install the brake lines up front here, and second is we have to swap the bleeder on the caliper. So we're gonna start with installing the brake line. So what we have here is an ISR front brake line kit, and this is gonna make it super easy to hook up the caliper to the rest of the braking system. So let's install these. All right, so we're gonna start here at the caliper, and we have our new ISR brake line here. We're going to remove this blue cover for the braking nipple here, and all we have to do is have the banjo side of our line facing downwards like so. If you can see that, it has an angle. Face that downwards, and there's going to be a crush washer that goes between the caliper and the banjo and the bolt and the banjo. So let me get that right now. So we have our banjo bolt right here. You can see I've already applied the crush washer to one side. So all we have to do is place the second crush washer on the caliper here. We can slide the bolt through our brake line and just kind of sandwich it into the caliper there and thread it in. All right, so we're gonna leave this loose for now because we want to get this clipped into its retainer. So you just kind of push it through into the retainer like so. So it's sitting just like that on the inside. If you can kind of see what I did there, I went over and pushed it through. And then we're gonna take our brand new brake line retainer clip, so I'll have this part number in the description too, and we'll take it so the bow is facing outwards, and all we have to do is hammer that down onto its clip, and I'll do that right now. So there we go, that has been retained. And then finally, now that that is retained in the middle there, we're gonna take our end and we're going to screw that onto the original brake line. So let's go over and do that. All right, it's quite simple. We're just going to take our end of our ISR line, thread it up through the bracket, thread it into our original brake line here. And before we tighten that down, we'll take another brake line retaining clip and just pop it on top here. All right, that is snug and in there. And now we can go ahead and torque down our brake line on this side and then by the caliper. And that is the brake line installed, guys. Let's move to swapping the bleeders, which is the last step. So at the top of the caliper here, we have this line that runs across, and at the bottom we have two bleed nipples. Now these need to be swapped because we need to, of course, bleed from the top of the caliper to get all the air out. So all we have to do is take a 10mm wrench and undo the threads here on the line on both sides and literally just swap it to the bottom. So that's pretty easy. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Alright guys, I just wanted to show you the clearance I have with these Enkei RPF1 wheels. They're 17x9 with a +22 offset, so if you have something similar, this is what kind of clearance you can expect. So right now, there is absolutely no clearance issues on the barrel of the wheels, so the inside of the wheel. The caliper is, well, it's pretty darn close, but we have a couple millimeters of clearance on the barrel section of the wheel. And in terms of the front spokes, I will show you, we have about, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 millimeters of clearance there. And I do have a 3mm spacer up front, so without the spacer, you're looking at about a credit card's width of clearance up front. So that is just the clearance with the wheel there. I just wanted to show you, just in case you're running these exact wheels.